Okay, so good afternoon, everybody. I am Jérôme Girard, and I'm the founder of InnoIT Consulting. First of all, we hope you are safe and also your family as well. Thank you for being here with us today. I will just make a quick introduction about InnoIT Consulting. We are an IT and digital consulting company. We try to have a disruptive position in the market. Our goal is to know the best IT talent in Spain in order to manage their career path and give them the best advices for their professional career. I can say that we work with our consultant as a football scout will do with a football player, or as an agent does with a movie actor. We launched the company 9 years ago in France and 3.5 ago in Spain. We are now a team of mostly 300 people around the world, and actually 47 in Spain. Today we are very happy to be here. We had more than 90 people directly attending this webinar. People from Barcelona, from Madrid, from Galicia, from Mallorca, also abroad from Spain. Today we're going to speak about how to sell DevOps to executive, how to sell an idea, more than DevOps, how to sell an idea or a concept to executive. Jordi Falguera and Álvaro Moya are going to share their experience with us talking the executive language. They will explain us how to sell a tech idea to a C-level. So we will first, also we have people from Germany, as we can see in the chat. We will start with a 40 minutes presentation. And next to this presentation, we will have an iterative activity. We'll go to separate room and we'll break out in some rooms. We will use Jamboard. So we can make we'll have a part one, an interactive part, and then we come back all together to have a quick question part. In this moment, we can make questions to our speakers. Also, during the speech, please write your question on the chat and raise your hand from reaction, so we'll go through them. And today I want to especially thank our speaker, Jordi and Álvaro. Thank you for co-organizing this event.
Pleasure.
Jordi Falguera is a seasoned Agile strategist. He has been part of many large Agile transformation, and he has a consistent, successful interaction with executive roles to help them adopt Agile practices. And Álvaro Moya is an experienced CTO. He's the founder of Lidr, and Lidr is a new community for aspiring leaders in tech. So Álvaro, I'll let you introduce Lidr and start the webinar.
Sure. So yeah, thank you so much, Jerome, for this introduction and setting the ground for the session that will be very practical. Yeah, actually, Lidr, it's a new community. It started last year. It's a community for aspiring leaders in tech. There is not enough of us right now in the markets. There is a huge gap, and our only goal is to make all of this base of developers and aspiring leaders, those people that think that they can do much more than just coding, transitioning into management roles up to CTO, not only CTOs, but up to CTOs, providing the right training, the right network, the right mentoring. So you have people by your side. That is what I was missing all the time during this transition that for me was around 7 years. And we are trying to put that learnings from me and other CTOs from Europe at your disposal in order to grow in a more organic way and more easy without all the pitfalls of the journey. So that's Lidr in a nutshell. And one of the topics we need to master in order to lead technology teams and being able to Be part of C-levels is communication. It's all about communicating the right thing, be concise, be clear, and being able to act as this translator between technology and business, so you can get the buy-in. And this is exactly what Jordi is going to teach us today in this first part with real examples. And then we will be practicing with each other in breakout rooms. So you can start, Jordi.
All right. Okay. Thank you very much, Alvaro and Jerome. Well, I would like to just let you know that this session will be mostly about personal stories. So I want to complement whatever I'll be explaining with stories that happened in the past and how I interacted in those stories and why this is beneficial for you in the future. So basically, this webinar comes from a frustration of knowing a lot about a certain topic and then realizing that the guy that I had next to me, who was the sales director, was able to communicate the idea much better than I could do. And realizing, wait a minute, I'm supposed to be the expert. How come he can explain it much better than I can? And one of the stories goes 6 years ago. It was my first time in a very big bank in Spain. And I was there as the Agile Strategist or the Agile expert. And I was talking to the CIO, and we were talking about technical debt and how it was impacting. And I was sharing this idea that, yes, you need to get rid of technical debt and then do as possible continuous integration. Da, 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 da. And then at some point, somebody raised a hand and said, listen, you probably don't know about this, but we have about 120 years of technical debt. Like, boom. At that moment, I realized I was lacking the context. I had not done any research. And immediately by me saying we need to have 100% code coverage, I had lost any credibility that I could have. And that made me think there must be a better way. So technical skills, they're there, but probably depending on the conversation, especially if you are in those conversations that do not last more than 10, 15 minutes, because top executives will not give you more than that time, then you need to be very precise, you need to use the right words, and you need to use it in a way that they can see credibility, and at the same time, you can answer their questions. And the first question that comes along is, okay, who has the budget for whatever technology, whatever tool, whatever platform I want to propose? Who has the budget and who makes the decision? So is the person that's in front of me a decision maker or an advisor? If it's the advisor, then that person needs to understand that deep enough so that they can communicate it further. So it's one level of complexity more. So understanding who has the budget and how can I speak to the budget holder is a very powerful message. And the second one is, what is this decision being based on? I happened to be in a conversation with a vice president 2 companies ago. His name is Sri, and I was talking about all the nice and fancy continuous integration servers. Jenkins, Circle CI, Bamboo, blah, blah, blah. This is better, that one is worse, and this can do these wonderful things. And he stopped me and he said, wait a minute. I want you to pick a tool that will continue to be around 10 years from now, because we are going to be investing in this tool. And this is one type of approach I had not considered. And that made me think, instead of me knowing the technical details, it would have been better if I would understand the context. So context is key. Another example is, I was going to a bank that had to use a specific software throughout all their offices. And I was explaining how one piece of software was better than the other one and why they should migrate to the new version. And they said, how many thousands of people are we going to train on this new software? Did you consider that? And what's the effort of stopping all these people for half a day, training them along with some training program and some support? Did you help all the support center or customer center understand this new technology? Is it worth changing it? And if I ask myself, then it's like, well, probably not. So it's again, how can we connect all these things? One example is Ryanair, for example. Ryanair, they have 271 Boeing 737-800, all of them, basically. And the decision is, we want to have only one type of plane, because then our mechanical people, they can fix this plane easily. We don't need to have different type of experts. And we train them on only one type of plane, and that's it. So when you think along these terms, when you have someone in front of you, ask yourself, does this person come from a technical background? Is it a CIO that has enough? I'm saying CIO, it can be CIO, CTO, head of technology, anything like that. Is that CIO having sufficient technical skills, technical knowledge to make sound technical decisions? So suggestion is, research LinkedIn. Look at that person's previous positions. A specific example is one guy that was the head of innovation, and I talked to him. Later, he became the head of growth markets. Later, he became the head of people and culture. And now he is the CIO. Like, what? How come? How did that happen? So you need to think that when you're going to large companies or big corporations, sometimes these positions are being filled in a similar fashion as musical chairs. Like, you just need to make sure that you hold the chair when the music stops playing. So it might be that they have the context, they have the empowerment of the CEO, but they don't have the knowledge. So if you are presenting to them, just make sure that you don't go into technical gibberish and using weird jargon just to look cool, because that not only will not be appreciated, but they will see it as a feeling of, yeah, I don't know what this person is talking about, so I cannot trust this person. So if it's not you who's presenting, then you need to give key messages to the spokesperson, find out what are the key messages you want to communicate on the specific technology platform or DevOps culture in general. Now, of course, if the person is technical, congratulations, that's love affair, and good for you, and they can challenge your decisions. It's good that they challenge your decisions, because then you can show your authority on this matter, but be prepared. So do not only show up with, this is what needs to be done and that's it, but rather be prepared for challenging questions. Now, what happens if the person is not technical? Well, then in that case, my suggestion is try to identify, try to think in terms of what's the business-related problem I'm trying to solve. And think of it in terms of two dimensions. Think of it in terms of investment and benefit. Is it a small investment for the company? Is it a big investment? Not on the technology itself, but on the technology, along with all the training, along with all the transition period, along with all the cultural change that's required as a result of applying this new technology.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, sure. Go ahead.
Yeah, no, here, I think this is important, especially for internal tooling, because a tech executive, a CTO, head of It's also responsible of the internal tooling of the company. And sometimes it's like, okay, we are using Zoom. We are going to move
Yes.
to whatever it is. And which is the cost? No, it's actually that we are saving money because now the premium, the monthly premium is going to be reduced. But what about the adoption cost, right?
Absolutely.
That's one of the examples that put in context that the cost can be much more than the monthly subscription, and you as the head of technology need to take all these topics into account, not only the cost of the things in the market.
Yeah, absolutely, and definitely, it's a very curious thing to see this frustration of executives when they see people just saying this one is better, that one is worse, and talking only about how much effort does it require to install this new technology without considering migration, without considering everything else that's around it. And that's a very easy way to lose credibility and trust in a matter of seconds. So that's basically investment and benefit. And then that's easy. You create a cost benefit matrix and try to combine it. So that's one of the dimensions. And the other one is you need to rehearse how to communicate it. It's not enough that you know about the topic. You also need to know how to communicate the topic. One thing that happens with me is I had been spending many years using English as the language of the company and learning everything in English and doing everything in English. And then I went into Spanish company that nobody was speaking English or it was not required. And I didn't learn how to use some specific technical words in Spanish. So every 3 or 4 words, I was dropping an English word. And I was saying like, yeah, well, that's the English name for it. Nah, that doesn't help. You need to focus on how can I use the language in a way that they can understand it and rehearse how to communicate. For that, I can encourage you, and I've been using it for many years and it works like a charm. Something called the Feynman technique. I'm going to put it in the chat.
I can do it, no worries.
Yeah. Feynman technique. Yeah, that's the one. So this technique is focusing on, okay, first, teach it to a child. Try to explain what you want to explain, however complex that is, to somebody absolutely non-technical, to your mother or to somebody like that. And then you just review when you see some odd faces not understanding what's going on. You just review, then you organize the key messages, you simplify it, and finally you communicate. So this idea of thinking every time I want to teach it to a child was helping me use the right combination of technical and versus non-technical words. And bear in mind, the farther you are from business, the hardest it is to showcase this traceability between what you're doing and how this benefits the business. So, for example, it happens with DevOps, it happens with Agile. It's like Agile is great, DevOps is great. Why? What's the specific business problem that this technology, philosophy, mindset is going to fix? And if you're not able to properly articulate an answer for that, just research and rehearse this possible answer. Because at least in my particular case, I read a book that's one of the very good books in DevOps called Continuous Delivery from Jess Humble. And he talks about the 4 principles of reducing the risk of releasing software. That's so good. And then he talks about incremental, low-risk releases, decouple deployment from releasing, focus on reducing byte sizes, and optimize for resilience. None of those 4 concepts are valid for an executive. You need to translate it. You need to explain it in such a way that they can understand.
But that's
for incremental load. Go ahead, Alvaro.
No, that's the word. That translate. You are translating from technical language to English, and that's one of the main roles of tech people in these terms. When you are head of, it's about just translating, just as people translating from Spanish to English is exactly the same.
But the only translating, I just want to point out something is like just happening to me right now. It's like I have to purposefully avoid using some term because I saw overload. For instance, microservice. I have been spending 1 month trying to talk about microservices without mentioning the word microservice, because this brings a whole different, I mean, it's like incredible what people is talking about. So you cannot believe how much mental effort is for me to not to use the term, because you know that there are 3 people in the conversation. You have like 5 different definitions of microservice, and none of them have any sense for the business, which is the main problem. You know. So yeah, it's not only translating, so sometimes just simply avoiding
using certain terms that are very technical. I cannot agree with you more, Pablo. And the technique that I've been using for that, for example, Scrum or something like that, people get so attached to the names, and they want to use the jargon that relates to that by thinking, if I know the name of the jargon, then I know the thing. And that's completely wrong. So instead of talking about Scrum, I talk about a governance model for teams. Instead of talking about sprints, I talk about certain duration every single time. By the end of it, we just review or we do whatever. So instead of using the name, many times I use the definition of the name. I just explain the definition. I just want to make sure that they understand. And then if they do, then eventually I might even say, okay, so the name for that is whatever. And then from then on, I present the name, I present the person, and then from then on, we can talk about that concept. Otherwise, my suggestion is the less names you use, the better. And that connects to one topic that was helping me a great deal, and I would like to share with all of you. And this is called the Grice Maxims. Is that okay if I share the screen?
Yes, of course. Go ahead.
Okay. So let me share the screen, and then let me briefly explain all of them. So there's a guy called Paul Grice. He was a British philosopher and linguist that studied how effective communication in a conversation is achieved. So how can we be more effective in a communication? And he broke it down into 4 maxims. And the maxims are the maximum of quality, maximum of quantity, maximum of relation, and maximum of manner. The maximum of quality is where one tries to be truthful and does not give information that is false or that is not supported by evidence. You know, this very famous management expert, Edward Deming, he said, in God we trust, all others must bring data. Or similar one, without data, you're just another person with an opinion. So refrain from using sentences like, this is the best, this is the fastest, this is the easiest, la, 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 la. Show it with data. If you have data you can show, according to a study done by this or by that corporation, this is the result of it. Use the right words and use data that's meaningful and that's truthful. The second one is the maximum of quantity. So this is where you try to be as informative as possible and deliver as much information as needed, but not more. So it's super important. Now, when you are in front of the executive, now is not the time to go into the details. Your credibility comes from how you speak and how well you address their questions, not how many details you know about the particular solution. Because they take it for granted that you have all those details and you can explain to them about all those details. So just answer to their questions, provide enough context, provide enough understanding. Through that, you're already showing evidence that you own the topic and you know it well. And then just give the right amount of information that they ask for. Many times, this is a huge mistake I've seen over and over. Because I know about the topic, I want to explain everybody about the topic. And that's when the conversation gets derailed and it's very difficult to come back. Okay, does it make sense so far? The third one is the maximum of relation. So here you want to be relevant and say things that are important or that are meaningful for the discussion. Now, talk about what's meaningful for them, not what's meaningful for you. You can know what's meaningful for them based on the questions you were trying to ask before. What's the business need? How are we going to fix this business need? What's the investment that's required? How are we going to do all this transition, etc.? So then talk about these things that are meaningful for them. And the last one, and that's the one that I like the most, and that refers to the comment previously made by Pablo, the maximum of manner. Here you want to be as clear, as brief, and as structured as you can be. And more important than that, avoid using obscurity, ambiguity, and words that they will not understand. So use whatever language they will comprehend, and it's not a competition of how much jargon you're able to throw at them. So easily you will claim your knowledge by being able to explain it in a way that's easier understood by them, much more, and that sounds a little bit counterintuitive, that's why I'm insisting so much on this, much more than using all the jargon to show that you learned all the different buzzwords and names specific to a particular topic. If I would use one suggestion, that's the one that I see most people failing at, that they cannot use the right level of conversation with the right level of stakeholders. Pablo, do you want to mention anything? Alvaro, sorry.
No, I can bring some examples of these topics, but now you describe it perfectly. At the end, it was about being concise. I was mentioning at the beginning, and avoid these kind of details that are not relevant, and maybe also related to being clear.
Yeah,
we have been mentioning about, okay, replace the jargon for definition, for example, but I can tell you as well, what about examples? What about metaphors? Because sometimes they work much better than the actual definition. So you can describe lean or lean methodology by their definition, or you can show this famous graph of the guys building the car piece by piece, or start building the skater, right? It's really easy. It's one image that is concentrating a huge amount of words in just one single concept, which is how you evolve, how you create something by parts or iterating, right?
Yeah.
So metaphors are a really good way to synthesize what you want to talk about, and it's about generating visual images in the brain of your audience, which can bring the idea much clearer and much quicker to them without using any word. You can just use one image, you can just use one clear explanation, and then it's like, hey, this is how lean works, and that's it. You don't need to know anything else, right? By now.
Right.
This is not relevant for the conversation. You don't need to go through the 12 agile principles in order to talk about
exactly agile. Or the manifesto. If they have seen one thing, they have seen the manifesto.
Exactly.
Yes.
What they
don't
need
worry
to know
about that.
About this change that is going to be beneficial for us, and is this change in mindset. We need to start working together in this way because of this and that. That's it. Forget about anything else related to Agile. So I think that's also important. I just want to bring these metaphors into account because it's a really powerful way we have from the language since ages ago to really define things really quickly and pass the information through generations. So yeah.
Yes, this is an excellent point, and I would like to briefly comment on that. But before that, don't say that you know a lot about something. Prove it, show it to them. And on the metaphors, well, my type of activity for the last 5 years has been always talking, sometimes at sea level, most of the times at sea level or below. And I can tell you, I was actively rehearsing and practicing personal stories and when to use them and how to use them. Because I could see personal stories or metaphors or images. Because I could see that many times a particular concept can be much better understood by explaining when I'm going to the gym or when I'm doing something specific, rather than by going too abstract 30,000 feet and trying to talk from a very high level. So don't hesitate to use more day-to-day related words and use them to your benefit to show that you can explain something in a relaxed way without having to go to the definition of it.
At the end, it's about storytelling. All these concepts are skills or parts of storytelling that you can learn. It's a key skill. At the end, we are talking about communication, and storytelling is a great and powerful asset you can have in your tool belt, not only to communicate to C-level, but also to convince your team, to motivate your team, because stories are really personal, are really heart touching. So it's much easier to get buy-in from both sides, both C-level and also your team.
Yes. Pablo, you wanted to mention?
Yeah, I would just comment that for many years, I also use a lot of metaphors, but I didn't realize that that's tricky because they tend to they can bring some images or have attached some images you don't really control.
Yes.
So over the year, I've been stopping using them and focusing more on the personal stories, because also the personal story have the other part that I think mentioned is like help you to bring some kind of relationship, because you are talking from you and people read that in an entirely different way that something was related. But when you start working in multicultural environment, the metaphors, like you don't really know what they bring because you don't really are into the
how they can read them. Yes,
cultural context. I need to be really careful of that. So yeah, I found it just because I realized that some images are every image has some meaning attached that you don't control.
Right.
So you are thinking you are transmitting something, and the person is getting a complete different meaning.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. That's an excellent point, Pablo. And I also had one or two situations where metaphors were misunderstood or understood differently by people within the same audience. And the other thing that happened, and that's probably something that happens to you as well, especially if you talk about abstract concepts like DevOps, is you try to simplify it, you try to explain it in a way that they can understand, and they confuse the way you explain it with the fact or with the matter itself. And then I remember being with the CEO of a very large energy company here in Spain. There are not that many. I'm not going into more details. And then I was trying to explain Agile as the ability to adapt quickly, effectively, And then he said, "Oh, so Agile is like common sense." And I said, "Well, yes, in a certain way it is." "Oh, okay, yeah. Also, I know Agile." Boom. I was thinking, okay, it took me like 12 or 13 years to learn everything that I'm trying to synthesize and distill for you. And then you're taking it as, okay, so I know enough to make decisions. And that's when the problems start to arise, because they make decisions not based in Agile. And then consequences is not only you have an informed person, but you have an informed person that believes uninformed person that believes that they know a great deal about the topic. But anyway, so would that be okay if we jump into the activity? Koe, you wanted to say something before that.
Exactly. Yeah. I didn't want to jump into the topic, but yes, you just said it. And I have a question that is like, are we really helping the C-level and at the end the company by simplifying everything for them? I mean, we are technical guys. The ones, I mean, I am a technical guy, right? So as a system engineer, I should know my job.
Yes.
So I guess the question is a kind of, sorry, a little not like really political, or maybe it's...
No, that's okay. Go ahead.
But it's like a CTO, they should know about technical stuff. And the COO, probably the example you say, probably should not be as that. It's like we are not helping them.
Yes.
By simplifying and make them think that they know much that they actually know.
Yes, I completely agree, Koe. That's how world should work. Unfortunately, it doesn't work that way. In the beginning, I was really scared talking to C-level because I thought, what if they ask me a question that I cannot answer? And then I realized, wait a minute, with what I learned in my first year doing Agile, I could answer most of the questions because they're very recurrent and they're very repetitive. But the biggest problem CEOs have, and I could empathize with them quite a bit, is they need to make decisions and they have very little time to educate themselves. There are so many different things that they need to learn to make educated decisions. And if they cannot do that, they need to rely on their team. So one guy, Carlos Torres, president of PPBA, I was having a conversation with him, reserved for half an hour. It took 10, 15 minutes. You need to deliver as much value as possible in that amount of time. And getting into details is not deliver the maximum valuable in that amount of time. So you need to find a balance. And I agree with you. Well, not CEOs, but the people in technical positions, they should know better. And the question is, yes, what happens if they don't? What do we do about that? But yeah, that's an excellent point.
Well, that's the magic, Koe. I think I have mentioned and I have interrupted Jordi on purpose about being a translator. The other part is being a double-sided filter. So you filter information that goes and flows through your team. Only the relevant information that they need to know. Is not about being transparent. You can still be transparent, but allowing them to be overwhelmed with information that is not relevant for them to take their own decisions from the technical side. And the other way around, you don't need to put all the information that your team says or what you are doing into the head of other people. And that's why functions and these matrix structures work so well, because not everyone needs to know about everything. And this is one of the trickiest part of one entrepreneur trying to grow the company. The CEO tries to keep knowing about everything, but they need to delegate, they need to rely on the team entire decisions. They don't really see anything about that decision, but otherwise it will not work because the time of that CEO is the same that the other people. So at the end, the CEO is kind of the coordinator. They need to know a bit about everything to have the possibility to make informed decisions. So what is a report? When someone is asking you asking you for a report of your team, what are you thinking about? Which is the metric that can be more valuable to describe the performance, to describe the results in the market, to describe the adoption of our product? So you are simplifying the work of maybe 50 people working for a whole quarter in just one number. This is what the CEO needs, because it's the number that is going to define the strategy for the next month. And you can find it's sad to really varnish all of this information, but at the end is the one information that matters, and that's why the companies have to be very clear about the objectives and the KPIs that matters for them, and not having hundreds. because it's the only one that will align all the whole company from 100 to 2,000 people to do the one same thing all together and aligned on that, right?
Yes,
so,
they need dashboards, they need useful metrics, and by useful meaning metrics that they are going to use to make decisions, so not vanity metrics or lots of data just for the sake of it. And the biggest problem people at the very high level have is something called the Dunning-Kruger effect. I don't know if you're familiar with that, but this is if you have a two-dimensional between knowing about something and believing you know about something. When you know not much, but you believe you know a lot, that's when you're suffering the Dunning-Kruger effect. This feeling that you know much more than you really do. And the consequence is you make decisions based on that belief of knowledge that's different from the real knowledge. The opposite of Dunning-Kruger is the imposter syndrome. Is these people that know a great deal, but they feel insecure, and then they feel they don't know enough. So when you're talking to these people, don't be discouraged by them oversimplifying or thinking that something is very easy, and don't try to prove them wrong. Just communicate the message, just make sure that they understand that you know a great deal about the topic and you can help them out. Okay. All right, so should we jump into this very brief activity? It's not going to take us more than half an hour. So what we would like to do is we have prepared the Jamboard for you, one for each group. We're going to break you down in groups of 4 or 5 people. Maybe we have 7, 8, 10 teams. And you're going to see a Jamboard. We didn't want to use Miro or Mural because we know most of you are technical, but just in case, we didn't want to go through the learning curve for this short amount of time. So Jamboard on the left, you can just click and create new post-its, and that's it. So there are 2 questions in it. We will address the first one, then come back. Then we will address the second one, then come back and have a final discussion. The first question is, think about any tool, practice, methodology, platform, concept in terms of how is this benefiting the business. So what we're going to do is put you in teams. You just discuss about one particular topic that's common to all of you, and then try to write post-its that in terms of how is it benefiting the business. Okay? Is it clear for everybody? Awesome. Okay. Alvaro, you do all the magic?
Yes.
Boom. Now we have an avalanche.
Time's up.
Time's up. Excellent. We have everybody back, right?
Sorry for the problem with the links. I don't know why the broadcast message was not working. I wanted to ask you the message from Jordi telling you that it was only 2 minutes left or something like that. Did you receive it?
Yeah.
Because the tool likes me more than likes you.
I am the one that is out of the game because.
Okay, let's go. Group 1, who wants to present?
So I will present.
Okay, so you have like 1 minute and you can share the screen and go ahead.
Okay, so in group 1, we have choose as a methodology, adopting any of the agile methodologies. We didn't want to go really deep on the weeks 1, okay? How it's benefiting the business. So we think that the most important one is that you are like a more competitive company, and it makes also your product more competitive. Why? Because you are decreasing the time to market of even your MVP or new versions of the product. Also, as at the C-level, you can have like a product status and visibility, not only like in a timeline, but you can work and try it already with a prototype. And this helps also to identify risk earlier, okay, like which are maybe the weakness of the product, or if the market is changing, the demand of the market is changing, you can easily adapt. And then, well, finally, we say that the product is more aligned with business needs and requirements, okay?
Right.
And then regarding the team, there is a knowledge sharing and transferring. This is happening because teams are cross-functional and they work together. So we think that this is very important also for the culture of the company.
Mm-hmm.
And this increases at the same time the product quality, because there is paid programming and there is a lot of alignment between the developers and the product owners and the QA. And at the same time, it gives you flexibility to adapt the product. I think I already said that.
Good.
So
Yes.
more or less, I cover all the.
Okay. No, that's very good.
Yeah, 1 minute more or less to define this
Exactly.
benefit of adopting Agile.
Yeah.
Great.
I like it. In some moments, you probably need to be more specific when you say more competitive or knowledge sharing and transferring, like what's the benefit or how can we quantify the benefit? And it makes perfect sense to me. So yeah,
I would say avoiding, in this case, pair programming. What the hell is pair programming?
Okay, yeah.
I don't know what you're talking about.
Yeah.
This kind of thing. Maybe MVP, yeah, it's something widely adopted right now. But anyway, yeah, MVP per programming is the only words jargon that I have seen in your speech. Otherwise,
yes.
Pretty good.
MVP they might be more familiar, but per programming definitely very techy.
Very technical.
Yes.
And in this case, it's a one that is easy to define, as Jordi mentioned, is pair programming, people programming in pairs. It's really easy to define in this case. Yeah.
Yeah. Good. Excellent. All right. Thanks so much. Group 2 or team 2?
Me.
All right. Go ahead.
Okay. So let me share. Okay. So can you see it?
Yes.
Okay. So I'm going to talk about DevOps, and what you can see here are the key points we think in business we can benefit for this methodology. Basically, DevOps, what brings us is more reliability, and this obviously affects a lot because we have less downtime. Our application will be live more time. Also, we will have faster response times because of this. We care about how our applications are working. Because we know good, we can have a faster RTO.
What's RTO?
So, I don't know the words exactly, but the time we need to recover from a failure of the system. So
return to operations.
Yeah. So yeah, the downtime will be less, and we also can recover better.
Yes.
And well, this is all reliability in the end. Also, we will need less maintenance because all of the reasons I just said. Thinking about DevOps being really close to the customer and allowing a lot of delivery cycles, we can have faster feedback from customers, so we can react better on their feedback. And summarizing all of this, it all comes to more time that we have for the developers, and also less resources, so we could even have more developers, and that brings us to more features that can be developed. So yeah, this is more or less.
Yeah, that's a good point, Nico, and thanks for sharing. In general, they don't care much about developers. The ones that I've seen, they do care about the cost that the product requires to being developed. They don't care much about maintenance they just care about uptime and how well presented that is, and if the brand is being impacted, if there's a downtime or there's something like that. So translating this return to operations into, we're going to minimize the time that it takes from the moment we detect something. So explaining it, that's how I would use it. But in general, I like it. I don't know, Alvaro.
Point out, yeah, RTO is the obvious topic, and Jordi has mentioned it on purpose because it's the obvious jargon that maybe they don't know about it. But the explanation you gave was fantastic. 4 words to explain the topic, perfect. For me, it was important about why less maintenance. So at the end, you are talking about less maintenance, and maybe this can make the people aware. It's like, okay, I'm going to waste less. It's going to be better, but you have not explained why. It's because of automation. It's because of less developers needed to do the same amount of work. Then it at the end. But for me, that part of the message was exactly after saying that you will need less maintenance. Other than that, I have only seen delivery cycles, but I think this word more or less can be understood, and that's it. So otherwise, maybe more fluid, the pitch more fluid, having more like an structure of what you are going to tell. I think here, Teresa, the message on our heads was like, okay, he has talked about first about business, then about the team, right? So he has structured the message in 2 areas. Yours was more like just going from one posit to the other without a certain order, and establishing this order at the beginning really sets the ground for your message and just grabs the attention because they know what to expect. So I think this is everything I would say.
Guys, do you think we should have talked about productivity more
Depends.
than more
Depends
features
by
developers, productivity and more customer features?
What they tend to think, both with DevOps and Agile, is something magic happens, and then the same developers can deliver double amount of features. That's kind of the de facto understanding. So who doesn't want Scrum or DevOps if that gives you faster release to production, cheaper?
It's not true. It's not true.
That's the point. It's not true. But
that's because we have to stop lying or at least making up things.
or explaining it in a way, this is what you get. For example, in Agile, you get to choose what are the valuable features, and you stop developing features that nobody will consume. And as a consequence of that, you will be having more interaction with the application or something like that. But not, yes, you put some practice or some methodology and then magically everybody will go faster. That's not how it works. And you should stop lying. Yes.
That's about setting expectations. Another topic to have an hour of discussion.
Yes. Okay. So we did 2 groups. We are 15 minutes from finishing this. Is that okay if we focus on the second part of the exercise, and then group 3 and group 4 will look into that? Excellent.
So yeah,
Alvaro, go ahead.
For the second question, you will be team 3 and 4 that will be presenting, right?
Yes. All right, let's go.
Okay, let's go.
All right, there you go. Back to business. So room 3, Viviana, Joao, you want to share?
Yeah, I think this topic was not very easy to discuss.
Thanks, Teresa.
But yeah, so so for me, one recent tough conversation that we had was our MVP. It was quite terrible. It had a lot of bugs, so he had to invest a lot in designing and testing a lot more.
Right.
So I just noticed that if I didn't implement the testing framework from the beginning, everything will be a nightmare later on. So I had to make these efforts very early on.
Yes.
That's a big investment that I'm doing now, just for the sake of peace of mind later on. And another topic, Viviana brought at was the difficulty of planning. So you have to plan in tough situations, and you don't have the time nor the resources. And having more context would be key on these situations, so you can make better decisions. It's also something very difficult for me. I find it very hard to make estimations, especially when I'm doing almost everything. It's very hard.
Right. Okay. Yeah, indeed. Thanks for sharing. Alvaro, you want to mention anything?
No. It's kind of a different activity right now. It's very different, and here I think what Ross explained is clear.
All right. Okay. And finally, group 4 or team 4, who wants to share? Ole, Miquel, Pablo.
Okay, hello. We are here. I don't want Pablo maybe once or me, whatever. What you want again?
Just briefly, because we had the topic which was because it was mentioned before, is like situation we don't like. One example, like what the team was discussing, when you approach the CTO or any CFO, and this kind of say, don't get into details. Just give me the KPIs and how do you react to the situation? Particularly, of course, like when you have the CTO, which is supposedly technical, and it also said, don't bother me with the details. So we didn't really arrive to any conclusion. It was like how to approach the situation, because it's like it has two sides. The one is like, yeah, you should be. I mean, I'm under your line of
reporting to you. Yes.
Yeah, it's like a CFO that don't get me the numbers. You're a CFO. Hey, wait a minute.
It's a really good comparison, because people laugh on the CF, but they say no, for the IT, the director it's because it's new, because and people build up a lot of excuses, but it's exactly the same. It's much more clear for financial, right? And for the money.
Yeah, but the point is that the financial, you shouldn't be going to the financial with the drill down of the account structure. Because the financial analysis, that's interesting. I will bring it because, again, I mean, finances is not the same as accounting. The chief of financial, he wants to know two things. First, that you are doing your duties in accounting. And second, translate that accounting into financial information that allows me to take decision, because you don't. Finances is like looking forward and accounting looking backward. So if you see it's the same data, but you need to translate in a way the guy can say, oh, we should be investing in this, or we should stop investing in this, which is different to how much I spending that particular. You need to translate anyway. So I think that the same apply to technology. It's not the same that you describe where you have technology. How do you translate to how do you make decision in technology? It's an entirely different game. Because when you are in the other side of the decision making, like for instance, hiring people, you suddenly realize that this fancy technology is not that nice, because hell, the developers cost a lot. Or you are now competing with a bigger company, and you cannot compete with. So you know what? It's happened to me as a CTO. Scala as a development program. No way, no, because the Scala developers cost me twice as a Python developer. So no way, I will do it Python.
Very good.
I don't care. I mean, it's not. Don't tell me about how nice Scala is for blah blah blah. I cannot pay Scala developers, so any conversation.
Right.
I would like to add one thing just to clarify. I think just communication has to work both sides, both ways. So I think we are just maybe we have some bias. I have some bias, but we are thinking on how DevOps talk to the C-level, but it has to work the other way around. So when I say the CTO has to be technical, it means technical to understand somebody that is behind him, like a DevOps guy or a team leader manager or whatever. But it has to be technical as well in order to transmit, in order to define the projects, in order to help the team to understand what are the goals in a technical point of view.
Yeah.
Otherwise, has to delegate completely, and if you fully delegate, you cannot ask for responsibility after.
Exactly.
Okay, I will challenge that. Just my final comment. I will challenge that point. Is like what I realize is that when a technical person wants to give you technical details, it's because of some reasons. And probably instead of giving the technical details, what you want to tell the people is it's going to cost more than you think, or it's risky, or we don't have the skill here. Why would you skip the technical detail and go up into the conclusion? Because why are you? I mean, really, why are you trying to transmit details? It's because you internally know that those details are relevant. Why are relevant? For what?
Because probably I expose in like a couple of options. What I usually do when I talk with CTO, which is actually almost every day, is like, listen, we have a problem. Okay, that's because you talk with people, because you have problems, and then you have to solve something, right? Yeah. And then you say, this is the problem. This is option B to solve it. A, B, C, and D, or them as much as I can, or maybe sometimes only A and B, right? So these are the options. But what I need is you have to understand me when I tell you option A is this and option B is this. I need the CTO to understand that, because I need his answer. Otherwise, I won't be in that meeting. I will be the guy choosing the option, but it's not my responsibility.
Right. Guys, we need to be conscious of time. We have 3 minutes left, and probably Alvaro wants to close. For those of you, just in case, if you want to reach out or connect in any way, I'm going to share my LinkedIn here for anyone that wants to reach out. Alvaro, you want to close?
Yes, of course. So, first of all, thank you so much for your commitment with the session. Second, thanks for participating so actively. You made it much more dynamic. Thanks, Pablo. Thanks all of you also chatting in the during the conversation. I hope that giving you also the details during the conversation helps you continue exploring these topics later on. Yeah, the only thing I have to say right now to close is I would like to know, how is your return on time invested? Some of you already know that we are always asking for this metric, and it's about how you evaluate the time you have put here and if it's valuable for you. So I will launch the poll. 30 seconds, you just vote, and this will be really, really valuable information for us, totally anonymous. So it's done, okay? Thank you for your participation.
Yeah, thanks so much.
Jordi. Thank you, Alvaro. See you soon.
Thank you, Jordi. Thank you.
Thank you,
everyone.
Thank you. Bye. Bye-bye.
Thank you. I enjoy a lot. See you.
Thank you, everyone.
See you. Bye. Bye-bye.